Welcome back. When Ron DeSantis ran for president, there were often signs at his events with the slogan, "Make America Florida." For a lot of us who live here, we just sort of laughed at that notion. DeSantis may have flamed out in his bid to be president, but it looks like the Floriding, the Floridification, the Floridifying of the country? Well, whatever it seems to be in full swing right now. Joining me now to discuss it is longtime political reporter Marc Caputo, who is currently with the Bulwark, but it will soon shed that and move over to Axios. Man, you can't keep a job, can you?
I'm trying.
All right. So congratulations on the new job at Axios. Thanks. You start there in January.
Right.
So let's start with this notion that Ron DeSantis did want to make America Florida. Well, Donald Trump seems to be doing that right now.
Florida's the third most populous state. It's got a big bench of talented Republican officials. Used to be a swing state. It's become a red state. So there are a lot of contributing factors. He's a Florida man. He lives here. He got to know the people. One of the most important things for Donald Trump is, does he know you? Does he like you? Does he trust you? Are you loyal? And so there's a lot of people here that fit that bill.
The access, to be able to be at Mar-a-Lago, to be in his presence, to be in his orbit.
That helps.
It really does. Like, I mean, he is very much like he wants to look you in the eye, and perhaps the last person in the room or the last person on the plane with him can become a cabinet official.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Gaetz became the Attorney General nominee, albeit he just didn't happen to be randomly there, because President Trump or President-elect Trump had the discussion with him on the plane. It was like, you know what, you're going to be my guy. Just a snap decision, which turned into a little bit of a headache for him.
But let's understand the root of that decision, which is also the root of so many of these decisions that he's making now, which is he prizes above all else loyalty. This is the cornerstone for Donald Trump. He wants people who are loyal and will do what he wants them to do.
Right. I don't think that he's just going to pick any idiot who's loyal. There's a variety of different steps that kind of go into his decision-making process. But yes, loyalty gets you in the door.
Let's talk about, obviously, I think Marco Rubio, nobody's expecting him to have any trouble with his confirmation.
Nope.
Pam Bondi, nobody's expecting her to have any trouble with her nomination. Mike Waltz, the congressman for National Security Advisor, again, easy, breeze right through, not a problem.
Dave Weldon, a former congressman who's going to be, CDC director.
CDC director.
He should be fine.
You know, obviously she doesn't need confirmation, but Susie Wiles as his chief of staff. Mm-hmm. Again, someone who he knows and trusts with that Florida connection. Now, the one Floridian who had trouble was the sheriff in Hillsborough, who for about 36 hours was his choice to be DEA, Chad Chronister, the sheriff, and then withdrew.
Ran afoul of the right for a variety of reasons, but the chief one is that during the initial COVID lockdowns, he had directed his deputies to arrest a pastor who had been violating the no congregation rule during the pandemic. And there have been a number of other sort of sins against the far right that were not appreciated with Chad Chronister, and so exit stage right, Mr. Chronister, he didn't want to deal with it.
Is that it, or was it just also? And then Trump embarrassed him by putting out a truth social post, basically sort of saying, "My beautiful pastors, I couldn't do this to them." But why did he do it in the first place?
Donald Trump is not known for impulse control, and that's part of the problem. I guess we're on a TV set for those of us who like Anchorman. There's a Ron Burgundy quality to him that if it happens to be in the sort of the teleprompter of his mind, it's coming out, it's getting read.
Now, the thing that I thought was fascinating about what happened to Chad Chronister in terms of he was there, he was hailed, and then he was vilified. And all in a span of 48 hours, he was done.
Welcome to Trump world, man. Life comes at you fast.
And that brings us to the Ron DeSantis question.
Yes.
Which to me is a fascinating one. And I'll be honest, when I started hearing the Ron DeSantis for defense secretary, I was skeptical on many levels.
Yeah.
In part because I would think to myself, you want to be the king of Florida. Why would you be a member in a cabinet? But I've come to understand, I'm talking enough of my reporting, enough of reading other people, such as yourself, This is about 2028. This is about having a position of strength within the administration that you can then project out on. The lesson of the 2024 election in DeSantis' world was voters want strength. And what is more powerful than the defense secretary and the feeling that the train was leaving the station?
Right. It's also Ron DeSantis needs and wants something to do. He's termed out after 2026. 2027, he becomes a private citizen. And to your point, the window is closing. Here is an open position, and there aren't a lot of cabinet posts that Ron DeSantis would leave the governorship for. This is one of them. The Defense Department's it's a mammoth agency, $800 billion. The state of Florida budget is about $117 billion. He has an opportunity to go after the woke. That kind of gets the headlines because it's culture war stuff. But there's just tons of bloat, waste, probably fraud in that Pentagon budget, which DeSantis, who is sort of a gearhead, would enjoy going after. It really is an attractive position for him.
My understanding was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he had, prior to the election, prior to the November election, as DeSantis' world was sort of gaming out what-if scenarios, you know, what would they like if it's possible. I think Attorney General was first on their list. I think he would have wanted to be Attorney General.
Speaking of loyalty.
Right.
That Donald Trump is not going to pick a guy who primaried him and mocked him for porn star payoffs and things like that. That's not happening.
So Defense Secretary was probably their plan B if they wanted it. And my understanding was DeSantis was originally a little reluctant, but again, sort of seeing all of these Florida people sort of riding the wave into the cabinet and dealing with the idea of being that lame duck. My understanding, my reporting is that if offered, he would take it. Is that your understanding?
I think that's generally right, but it hasn't been officially offered.
No, it hasn't.
And
right.
I know that DeSantis, as any sane person would, has reservations. Do you want to leave your job you were elected to 2 years early to work for a guy who suddenly might say one day, you know what, I'm going to fire you, and post it on Truth Social, and boom, it's over?
That's the risk. That is clearly, that's the struggle. Do you risk irrelevance by being termed out and being a lame duck with the legislature, a House Speaker in Danny Perez, a Senate President Ben Alberton, who have made it clear they want to reassert a certain level of dominance again from the legislature? We'll wait to see if that actually happens. I see the skepticism on your face. It's on mine too. But there seems to be some reestablishing of the legislature wanting to have a role as opposed to just being, you know, when Ron DeSantis says jump and the legislature says how high.
Correct. They're tired of getting their shine box.
Yes. Trust me. There were many members, I'll say several members of the Republicans in the Florida legislature who want to know where they can write the letters of recommendation for Ron DeSantis to become defense secretary.
Oh, a lot of people, power brokers and elected officials in Florida, would not only like DeSantis gone, but they would like Jeanette Nunez, the lieutenant governor, to become the governor, because that solves a few problems. One, they trust her and they like her. Two, they don't really like Byron Donalds. He's the congressman from Southwest Florida.
Who is definitely running for governor. All indications are he's running for governor.
More than likely. But
even if Jeanette Nunez, my understanding, my reporting is that even if Nunez was the sitting governor, in 26, he would still primary her.
Well, that's going to be a fun race to cover if that happens. And then, of course, the one that terrifies them the most, who I just mentioned earlier, Matt Gaetz. So they view Jeanette Nunez governorship as great. So by hook or crook, maybe I shouldn't say crook, any way they could, if they could get Ron DeSantis out and they could get Jeanette Nunez in there, it would be a great deal for them.
Again, my reporting tends to lean towards, DeSantis is still doing his processing on who to replace Rubio. The leaning seems to be towards Ashley Moody for two reasons. One, Moody is a safe pick to sort of move in there. It also helps on the dominoes and the chess pieces on the governor's race. And two, it allows him to reward his close friend and chief of staff, James Othmeyer, by naming him attorney general. But that would be a little bit more conventional. The unconventional conversation continues to be, what about Laura Trump? Now, you tell me. What I hear is that if DeSantis became defense secretary, he's less likely to appoint Laura Trump because of the idea that it would be seen as too much of a, I give her a Senate seat, you give me a cabinet post.
Right. DeSantis, both his admirers and detractors fault and praise him for his stubbornness. And there's certain lines that he doesn't want to cross. And one of them is he doesn't think that Laura Trump should be appointed to this seat because she's such a new Floridian. She hasn't earned her stripes. She hasn't paid her dues. She hasn't gotten enough Florida-ishness in her. That'd be another word we could come up with here, neologism. So yes, he's looking at these other choices. He doesn't want to do that. My understanding is though Trump has talked to him about DOD secretary, and though Trump has talked to him about Laura Trump, there's not an explicit linkage or an actual ask or a quid pro quo. That's what I've been told.
I follow that along in the same way. It's going to be fascinating to see. One of the things I've got marked on my calendar is Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump are planning on being together for the Army-Navy game a week from this coming Saturday. So we're taping this on Friday, but it'll air on Sunday. So there. Yeah. Could be an interesting time if a defense secretary position is available.
Well, it's a great way for Donald Trump to let his current pick, Pete Hegseth, know, remember, thou art mortal. You're replaceable.
Marc Caputo, I really appreciate your time as always. Thank you for coming in, and always enjoy it. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
All
Kwanzaa.
of them. The whole thing.
Festivus.
All right, we'll be right back after the break.